We all know what a galaxy looks like, right? It's a huge collection of stars and other matter that's shaped like a spiral or an ellipse. And if you're an astronomy fan, you probably know that most of the mass is from invisible, mysterious material called dark matter. Well, NASA's Hubble Space Telescope just took an image of a galaxy that is none of those things. For the first time, astronomers have strong evidence for a galaxy not having a significant amount of dark matter. Most astronomers currently believe that dark matter plays a fundamental role in our universe and the formation of galaxies. This is because galaxies seem to have a lot more mass than what we can account for based on just the stars we see. How much mass is in a system is determined by measuring the speed at which galaxies rotate or individual stars in a galaxy move. Without the gravity from that mass, a galaxy would fly apart if everything in it is moving as quickly as we observe it moving. Decades of research have led astronomers to the extraordinary conclusion that 85% of the mass in our universe is invisible in all wavelengths of radiation, and that it's composed of matter that does not contain protons or neutrons or any type of particle we've detected before, and that this invisible material is all around us, passing through us without interacting with regular matter except by gravity. For some, that's a tough pill to swallow, and a minority of astronomers wonder if maybe we just don't completely understand how gravity works. If that were the case, and it was an inherent property of gravity that causes galaxies to move the way they do, then we could expect all galaxies to behave the same way. In other words, they would all seem to have about the same portion of dark matter. But with the galaxy in this Hubble image, astronomers looked at the velocities of 10 globular clusters in the galaxy, each a spherical collection of hundreds of thousands of stars, and calculated that their movements can be accounted for entirely by the mass of the visible material in this system. That means this galaxy has little to no dark matter. Strangely, this absence of dark matter actually provides evidence that dark matter is real. It shows that dark matter isn't always coupled with regular matter, that it's something separate. You can have regular matter without dark matter. This galaxy is really weird even beyond the dark matter thing. You may have noticed you can see straight through it. That's because this galaxy is what's called an ultra-diffuse galaxy, which, as the name implies, is extremely low density. This galaxy is about the same volume as our own Milky Way galaxy, but only has about 0.5% the amount of stars. Though astronomers have known about ultra-diffuse galaxies since the early 1980s, they can be difficult to find since they're so faint. A team of astronomers is using an array of telephoto lenses called Dragonfly to seek out these ghostly-looking objects. They obtained observations from Dragonfly, the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, the Gemini Observatory, and the Keck Observatory, then requested time on the Hubble Space Telescope to take a closer look at this unusual galaxy. Having images and data from multiple sources allowed the team to determine that this galaxy does not have a significant amount of dark matter. This was definitely surprising to find. No other galaxies so far have appeared to be so lacking in dark matter. In fact, other ultra-diffuse galaxies seem to have an overabundance of dark matter. The same team who studied this galaxy discovered a different ultra-diffuse galaxy in 2016 that they calculated was 99.9% dark matter. Yet another weird thing about this galaxy, the globular clusters used to measure the galaxy's rotation are way brighter than normal globular clusters. The researchers have written a different paper that focuses on just these oddball collections of stars. So this is a very strange galaxy in several ways. Astronomers will be looking at Hubble observations of other ultra-diffuse galaxies to see if there are any other examples of galaxies with unusually low or high amounts of dark matter. With more samples, astronomers will be able to better understand the nature of dark matter, the formation and evolution of galaxies, and the overall structure of our universe.
We are back. This is day 3 of the 2024 Astronomical League Convention in Overland Park, Kansas. With us right now is Kent Martz from Explore Scientific and Scott Harrington, who's a gifted deep sky observer, having accomplished incredible feats of deep sky observing with just a pair of binoculars. He now is involved in writing. He's a recognized author, and I think he's like the youngest contributing editor ever to Sky and Telescope magazine. So that's pretty cool. Anyhow, Kent, I'll let you go ahead and introduce Scott and get started here.
Hi, Scott. This is going to be difficult because every time I say Scott, I don't know if I'm talking to him or him, but this is going to be talking about Harrington now.
Well, he's the real Scott,
He's the important Scott.
That's right.
Scott lives
That's right.
in the dark area of Arkansas. He's blessed to live in mortal white skies.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And he's an Arkansas guy. So that's
Round
cool.
2 or 3.
Yeah, it's
Around that zone.
you know, the Ozarks of north central Arkansas are nice and dark. And nothing in Missouri up to the north, and so there's not a lot of big cities. So he's blessed to have darker skies than the average person in the United States does. That gives him the ability to do some cool stuff. So first,
Yeah.
I think got interested in astronomy and where it's taking you since you were 14 years old, right?
Well, my parents always had a big interest in astronomy, and so they encouraged it. They encouraged my older brothers first. It's really quite thick, and so when it came down to me, they were pretty happy that it stuck with me. And so my dad gave me he had a telescope, but he said it's too big. Use the binoculars. So that's what he first encouraged. So I've been using the binoculars for the first time I ever used them. I used them on the Orion Nebula. I got up early one morning and I was able to see it. But what really shocked me was when I took the binoculars down, away from my face, I could still see the nebula. And that for me has always been a big memory for me. It's there. And so binoculars are an interesting way of jumping off point for the naked eye. That's what kind of propelled me into the deeper sky with bigger telescopes with binoculars. So that's what my presentation was on.
But your passion is binoculars, right?
Yeah.
And so you're contributing to an emerging field of science. In fact, we were just having a discussion a few minutes ago with an astronomy professor about estimating the magnitude brightness of satellites and why? Who cares?
Yeah, so that is there's these mega constellations they keep putting up. They're supposed to be telecommunications and such for internet connectivity. And what's happening is that the companies that are putting them up kind of want to know how bright they are, just because there's a lot of people on the ground outside the company that want to know. They want to hold them accountable. Like, well, do you know how bright your object is? And so what I'm doing is I'm part of a small group of people. Anybody can join. It's just small because not many people are doing it. We go outside at night and we go after specific satellites that we're looking for, and we measure their brightness as they go across the sky. It seems simple, it is, but it's like variable star estimating with a moving object, because it'll brighten or dim as it goes through the entire sky. So you kind of have to record your observation, and then I send them off to another guy, and they kind of crunch the numbers, they pull it together to kind of figure out what the satellites are like doing. It, they pull them to like 1,000 kilometers. They have a base number.
So how does somebody get involved in that?
Well, you can contact me. You can contact Anthony Lama.
Give them your email. That's the easiest.
Okay, my email address is very simple. It's SN4, so SN4ARK @gmail.com.
So S is in Scott.
Yep.
N is in Nancy.
Nicholas. Yeah,
Nicholas. 4, the numeral 4.
that's right. I'm the fourth child.
Right. SN4
Yep.
AR. You live in Arkansas.
Yep. ARK
ARK.
Yeah.
And
at Gmail.
at Gmail.
Yeah.
So Scott will be typing that down and posting it here in the chat and on the
Okay.
screen so
Okay.
people
Oh,
can.
you guys are going to have to give it. I'm multitasking here. We have people that are joining up for a global star party, and I'm interacting with them too.
Okay.
Give me the URL one more time.
I'll message it to you real quick, Scott.
Oh, that's easy.
That
Okay.
might be this if I can find there's the chat.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, you get it there.
Scott, you're going to have to show
Yep.
up on Global Star Party sometime.
I know. Well, devil's in the details, but I recently got so we got Starlink at our house, and now I can
Yeah.
actually use high-speed internet. And I can do more of that
Okay,
presentation stuff.
Scott, that should be in the chat function now for you to copy and paste. It
Oh,
was-
okay, that's the email
Right.
address. Okay.
You know,
We
I
will
have a
put
Starlink.
that, it's okay to put it out on the message
Sure.
feed? Okay.
Make it public, everybody.
Sure.
And
It
that's
will be public. There it goes.
And so if you're interested in participating in, and it's going to take some training because you have to learn how to estimate magnitude of a moving object that could get brighter or dimmer, or could be rotating and get bright and then dim and bright
Oh,
and
the
dim.
tumbling one started.
Yeah.
They're doing just it's best to actually start with variable stars or novas. Just start with variable stars is the best way. The AAVSO has a good setup for that. And if you can kind of get a feel for that, then you can transpose it over. Because for the longest time, I wasn't very good at stars. I don't know. It's a trick. Stars are a trick.
It's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill you
Yeah.
have to acquire. You can't just doing it.
So with your binoculars, you've seen lots of different planetary nebula, other stuff, right? And high numbers of them. Talk about, was that intentional? Was that a campaign you did? Or is it something you were like, hey, and more and more and more?
Okay.
What's that look like?
So it came back to that first view of the Orion Nebula where I was like, okay, I didn't know this was here. Why hasn't anybody told me this? And what I did is I started recording the observations of what I would see. I'd use star charts, I'd use atlases, but they only had the brightest objects. A lot of times the pull-out maps in the middle of a magazine. And so then once I saw the brighter ones, I kept going. I kept trying to see fainter ones. So in some way, it just kept tumbling, and I just kept getting this idea of like, hey, well, if I saw this, maybe I could see something fainter, and just kept going. And probably because I'm very determined, it never seemed to end. And I started kind of enjoy the challenge because at some point somebody would say, you should kick over and start using a telescope. And I was like, yeah, but the challenge of the binoculars. So that's how I've come to see basically, over 100. Well, in a pair of 7x35s, I ended up seeing around like 85 galaxies. And, pair of 7x35s, I saw like 20 something nebulas. And it just ended up being more than I ever dreamed of.
So let's talk real quick about the numbers. We throw numbers out there, and in our hobby, it's often easy for us to assume people know what the acronyms are and what all the numbers mean.
Yeah.
Talk about the numbers when we're looking at talking about binoculars. Those numbers have a very specific meaning.
Okay.
Let people that may not know what that is.
Pair of binoculars, it'll have two different numbers, and in the middle will be an X, so with the first number will always be the magnification. So if it's a 7, it magnifies it compared to the human naked eye level, it magnifies it 7 times. If it's a 20, it's 20 times. And then it's 7 by, they usually pronounce it by, then 35. Well, 35 is in millimeters, and it's about an inch and a half.
How big is the diameter of the end of the binocular?
Yeah, it's the outer part where that brings in the light. And so if I say 10 by 50, I mean it magnifies the view 10 times, and the aperture is about 2 inches. And so that's a 10 by 50 binoculars.
So what's the effect going from 35 millimeters to 50 to 75, 120 millimeter?
Well,
what's the effect of that? What's the benefits?
Well, it allows you to see fainter because it's kind of like if you set a pail out to catch raindrops, you'll catch more rain if you set out a bigger pail, like a swimming pool. And so the larger your objective lenses or your aperture up the front, like a camera, the brighter your image will be, the more light you can gather. And the magnification also helps in that effect. It allows you to get a little darker background as you zoom in on it. So bigger equals fainter is the best way to put it.
So Scott Roberts said this once, and I was like, that's a really great way of describing it. A telescope or a binocular effectively makes your pupil the diameter of that telescope, right? So, owls have really big pupils, and so they can see at night. Well, imagine if your pupil, like using this 127 millimeter back here behind us, which is effectively 5 inches. Imagine if your pupil was 5 inches in diameter, and now you have a pair of binoculars, and both your pupils are 5 inches in diameter, how much more light you can see in being squished down to your 4 or 5 millimeter pupil and going into your eye. Binoculars are really a good way to get started in astronomy because lots and lots of people already have them. Like you already had a pair of binoculars when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just went through the 3 that we had, and I was like, well, these look like the cleanest, these look like the best. And so that's what I started with. And that is the best way to start because one, they're cheap relatively. In hobby astronomy is a bit expensive at times. So for anything less than $200, like a pair of binoculars, that's great. And you can get started. Kids can get started in them because nothing's flipped, nothing's messed around with. It's the same field of view you'd expect. You see a constellation, you see a galaxy, a planet, you hold it up, and it's still there. Nothing's moved or anything. And so it gives you that basis to go from just a 1 power, that's what your naked eye is, to 7 power, and you're getting to zoom in on it. Yet it's still there. You can still pull back and say, I see Cassiopeia. I may not see the entire thing in the binoculars, but I see most of it. And so it allows you to get a feel for what you're looking, because otherwise it's like zooming in on a map of the world and you just zoom right down in on New York City and you're like, where's New York City again?
You get lost sometimes.
Yeah, you need to get that feel for just the big picture. That's why that you learn the states of the United States before you learn the cities. You have to just kind of work your way down.
All right. My father didn't buy a telescope until he was 65 years old. So I had a telescope before my dad did. He always used binoculars, and the reality is he had 2 telescopes, one for each eye.
Oh, yeah.
They were really small, but he had binoculars or he just did naked eye and a little bit of astrophotography. And those days spent or meteor showers, he loved meteor showers, and we'd take our green wicker patio furniture out in the backyard. And if it was wintertime, get blankets and we'd sit there and count meteors and just talk about meteors. And those times spent with my dad doing nothing while doing something, I cherish those memories. And many times our children just crave our time to sit there with us. And in this day and age, they're always exercising their thumbs really well on video games. If you can find ways to go out and engage your kids at night and give them your time and teach them that there's more to the world than those video games. Astronomy is one way, fishing, find something, right?
Yeah, I once saw an interview with LeVar Burton, and they asked him, well, how can you make kids read books? He said, well, they really like to imitate what you do. If they don't see you reading books, that's not really going to help them. If they see you reading a book, that will. So it's like you kind of have to go out there with them. You have to kind of show them this is what you value, and then they will say, well, if they value it, I should value it. They're my parents. So yeah, the parents have to be out there also. You can't just push your kid out the door. You have to be there with them. That encourages it.
And if a kid has an interest in astronomy, what that means is you're going to have to develop an interest in astronomy to make the telescope work and make it. Yeah. Now, I used to train dogs a little bit, Labrador retrievers. And one trainer told me, he said, you always want the dog wanting to retrieve. Never retrieves practice retrieving so much that the dog refuses to do a retrieve. Just do a retrieve before the dog ever quits. And sometimes I'd go out and do 2 retrieves and be done.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd go out, we wouldn't do any retrieving, but I never went out and did 50 retrieves because I always wanted that dog hungry to do the job.
Okay.
If you go out and do astronomy and your kid gets bored to death, very quickly, they're going to remember being bored. You want that kid to want to be going out there and always be hungry for maybe doing another retrieve. And you know, let's go in, it's cold. So, and that applies to anything with kids. If they get bored and distracted over and over again, they're not going to like it.
That's a good point.
And you've got to find that point to stop before that boredom sets in. So, I'm trying to think of another question. I had one that was formed and forgot. You have brothers and sisters. You got 4 brothers and 2 sisters?
Yeah, I'm one of the 4, but
Oh, there's 4 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah.
Are any of the other ones into astronomy? I know your brother Kyle is here with you. I've met him.
Yeah, well, my older brother Ryan, he's into what you might call the manned spaceflight side. He gets excited about that. He and I were both interested in rockets. We're boys, and So he builds model rockets, and that's he likes to build 100 scale things. He 3D prints them. So that's his thing. As to anybody else, it's, well, because how a big family is, it's kind of like they see me doing that and they're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. They don't, there's kind of a slight competitiveness to it. So no, they're all willing to come out when I show them a supernova or a comet. They enjoy it, but they don't necessarily lose sleep the way I do at night.
Or transfer sleep to the daytime. Right?
Yeah.
And I know your parents were here and one of your sisters was here. And I said, well, where are your other ones? And they said, oh, somebody's got to stay home and take care of the farm. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
animals do have to be, if you're involved in that, there's a certain dedication to being there to take care of those animals that rely on you.
Yeah, you get those skies that come along with a few other things like responsibilities of animals.
Yeah. So anyway, after all the sessions, every speaker gets mobbed,
Yeah.
and they which is awesome. What was was there a common question yesterday when you got done? What was drawing people's attention?
Most of them just a fair number of them came to me and said that they are happy for my presentation. Some of them said they'd like me to present about observing binoculars at their club virtually. Others said that this was a reinforcement for them because they've been trying to do that in their clubs, trying to encourage the younger people. And so this is very helpful for them to see that, yes, this is still viable for a young people to do this, because I'm a young person still, hopefully. And that was the majority of it. Most people just thanking me, just happy to see that, binoculars are still a way to go.
And still have a role.
Yeah.
The big enemy for binocular astronomy is the big enemy for any visual astronomy, and that's light pollution. It comes down to, because if you can't see the Milky Way, you can't see the faint nebula, the planetary nebula.
Yeah.
You can't see globular clusters. You can't see galaxies, and that's the enemy. And I really try and talk to light pollution to a lot of people, and just try and get them aware of what we're talking about. We're not talking about no lights.
Yeah.
We're talking about the right amount of light in the right place for the right reason at the right time. And now I've added in the right color, the correct color, because, and that's what we're talking about. We're not saying no lights. We're just saying get it on the ground where it needs to be and don't make it overwhelmingly super bright white.
I got to go to Flagstaff, Arizona, and they're like one of the first like dark sky city. And it was like, there was no giant billboards. There was no, which is fine for me, but it was, everything was just well lit, properly lit. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Done right.
You didn't drive down the street and see a light shining bright light into your eyes.
Oh,
Tucson a few years ago, Arizona went through a retrofit of the street lights where they turned them off or turned them down, and specific intersections may be low light level. But if something happens, the police need the street lit up, they can call and say, hey, light up the 4,000 block of East 5th Street, and all the street lights come on.
okay.
Right? And Tucson, and I've not been at Tucson at night, but my wife took my youngest son to play baseball. She said from the back side of the hotel parking lot near downtown Tucson, she could see the Milky Way. A big city, but all the observatories are close. They've had a light pollution ordinance since 1972.
Wow.
And it's a big city. It's a well-lit city. But if there's nobody in the building, the ordinance is, if I remember correctly, require you to turn the parking lot lights off. If there's nobody there, why do you need parking lot lights, right?
Yeah.
And so you can get in a dark space in downtown Tucson and see the Milky Way. It can be done and still have very well lit, responsible lighting. So anyway, I appreciate what you're doing at being an evangelist, if you will, for binocular astronomy, and hopefully inspiring some young people to get out there and look up and see what they can find and do. So
Yeah.
appreciate you very much, Scott.
Well,
So
thank you.
Scott Roberts. Hello, Scott Roberts. Can't hear you, Scott. You're muted.
Muted. That's right. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Well, great. I think I met your brother at the last Alcon event.
You did.
Maybe your whole family was there at that time. I can't remember. But Chuck Allen, introduced you to me and was just amazed at all of your accomplishments. And so it's great to see that you're still into it, and that you're finding your way in this community because, once I got involved in the community back in the 1980s, it was about 1983, I never left. I mean, it was just amazing. And all the people that you meet and all the access you can have and all the support you get from everybody else, it seems to be unlike anything else you can get involved with. A lot of things, hobbies, sports, other activities are like sometimes so competitive that it's hard to get in until you're at the kind of the top of your field. Okay, and here in amateur astronomy, you can start off with, just being a total newbie, not knowing anything, and people will help you learn more, and then step by step, you can become really a great observer and really contribute to the growth and well-being of this amateur astronomy community. But it sounds like, you came into this gifted, Scott, and I think that's awesome. And so I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I'd like to have you on Global Star Party. We're running our next one next Tuesday on the 23rd. It will be our 153rd Global Star Party. So I'm chatting right now with Yumna Mahid in Pakistan, okay? And she does astronomy outreach and space exploration for youth in that part of the world. And she travels all over the world doing this. So if you know people like Pranvera Haisini and other people that do this kind of outreach where they travel like that, that's what Yumna does. So it's very cool.
Hey, Scott.
So, yes.
He's never used a pair of image stabilized binoculars before. So I've extended the invitation to him to come by the store and we can fix that.
Oh, you've never used one? Oh, okay. Yeah, we can let you try that out. So
You guys even
maybe he is image stabilized by himself. Maybe he doesn't need that.
Well, we've talked about tricks and
there's
tips to doing that.
tricks, but I've always been curious to know how good are they. I always kind of I don't need them, but I've come.
You might be disappointed. I don't know. You might be like so rock solid stable that some people
I
are.
will try them. I'm excited.
Those things are for people like me. My hands shake. I tremble and stuff. So,
So for those of you who don't know, we do have a store in Springdale, Arkansas, not Arizona, Arkansas.
Arkansas, AR,
not AZ.
Yeah,
not AZ. Yeah.
It's easy to find. Look us up, and if you're ever in the region, I know there's a lot of people who are traveling I-44 or I-40. Like going from Memphis to Oklahoma City, or I-44
Route 66. Yeah.
Or Route 66 going from St. Louis to Oklahoma City, and it's a real easy 30-45 minute jog down to us, and then go west, pick up the road you're on, and keep going on your journey. We have people stop in, and we love for people to come in and just walk around and golf.
We're friendly. We don't bite hard.
Nope. And for some people, we have to get a towel so they can wipe the drool off their chin sometimes, because there is some pretty cool stuff in the store, most assuredly.
Oh yeah. And the most cool part is the people that run it. So.
Well, thank you, Scott, very much.
Anyhow, okay, Scott, thank you very much, man, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
Okay, thank you guys.
Take care.
I'm gonna go try and grab somebody, and maybe be back in 15 or 20 minutes with talking about manipulating photos for astrophotography.
Is that what's going on right now with the?
Just got done a few minutes.
Talks.
Some talks, and we're probably close to lunchtime now. So go try and snag somebody and continue the parade of brilliant people.
The parade of brilliant people at Alcon. All right, here we go.